Your body adapts to the position you repeat. Sit for hours at a time, and you do not just rest. You reduce large muscle contractions, slow the mechanical help those muscles give circulation, lower total energy use, keep the hips and spine in a narrower movement pattern, and spend more of the day in a low-output metabolic state. That is the frame you need. Sitting is not automatically harmful, but long, uninterrupted sitting is a biological dose. And once the dose gets high enough, the body starts paying for it. So stop treating sitting as neutral background behavior and start treating it like load you either manage or accumulate. Here is what is happening under the hood. When you sit too long, the muscles of the legs and hips are much less active, which means less contraction-driven help for blood flow, less glucose uptake by muscle, and less frequent interruption of sedentary time. That matters because prolonged sedentary behavior is associated with higher cardiometabolic risk, and experimental studies show that breaking up sitting with short bouts of light walking improves post-meal glucose and insulin responses compared with uninterrupted sitting. In one diabetes care trial, interrupting sitting with brief walking bouts lowered postprandial glucose and insulin. In another physiology study, repeated chair stands every 30 minutes worked about as well as short walking breaks for lowering post-meal insulinemia. That is why sitting too long is not just a posture issue. It is a circulation and metabolism issue first. Now add the cardiovascular layer. The American Heart Association has warned that even people who exercise regularly may still carry higher cardiovascular risk if they spend a lot of time sitting, which is exactly why "I work out so my desk job does not matter" is such a weak argument. Sitting too much is linked with the same cluster you do not want building quietly in the background: higher blood pressure, higher blood sugar, more abdominal fat, and worse cholesterol patterns. In a randomized trial in older adults, reducing sitting time lowered systolic blood pressure over 6 months. In a separate laboratory study, all walking break conditions lowered blood pressure compared with sitting all day, and a 5-minute walk every 30 minutes gave the strongest blood sugar benefit. The heart does not only care whether you exercise, it cares how much of the rest of the day you are motionless. Then there is the musculoskeletal and respiratory side, which people often oversimplify. Sitting for long periods does not automatically damage your body in one dramatic way, but it does narrow your daily movement vocabulary. Hips stay flexed, ribcage motion gets smaller, the spine spends more time under static load, glutes contribute less, and the body gets more practiced at stiffness than at movement. That is why people often report tight hip flexors, cranky low backs, heavy legs, shallow breathing, and that strange feeling of being tired and restless at the same time. The problem is not that sitting is evil. The problem is that static posture, repeated for too long, becomes the default software. Then, when you ask the body to stand tall, walk fast, or train hard, it feels less ready than it should. Research on prolonged sitting and muscle stiffness also supports the idea that regular muscle contractions matter for musculoskeletal health. Your nervous system and sleep system feel it too. Movement is one of the cleanest ways to regulate state across the day. CDC guidance is direct that physical activity helps you feel better, function better, and sleep better, and that adults who sit less and do any amount of moderate to vigorous activity gain health benefits. When sitting dominates the day, you often lose more than calories burned. You lose daylight exposure, stress resets, posture changes, breathing variation, and the transition moments that help your brain stop feeling trapped inside one continuous task. That is why people who sit too long often describe the result as brain fog, afternoon drag, irritability, worse sleep onset, or needing more caffeine to feel normal. Most people misunderstand this because they think the real issue is laziness or fitness level. It is usually simpler than that. The body reads long, uninterrupted sitting as long, uninterrupted, low-output living. So apply this like a coach. If your day is desk-heavy, your first move is not to make up for it with one heroic workout at night. Your first move is to break the sitting pattern before it hardens. If your body gets sleepy and metabolically flat after meals, stand up and walk for a few minutes after eating. If your hips and low back feel worse than your energy, use frequent short movement breaks instead of one long stretch session that you never do consistently. If your job traps you in meetings, protect the gaps between meetings like they matter, because they do. In practice, a good starting rule is to get up every 30 to 60 minutes and move for 1 to 5 minutes, with walking as the default. If you can handle more structure, a 5-minute walk every 30 minutes is one of the better studied strategies for offsetting sitting-related harm during long sedentary periods. Form matters less than consistency, but it still matters. When you stand up, do not just hover near the desk and call that enough. Let the ankles move, let the hips extend, let your arms swing, and let your breathing deepen. If your environment allows it, walk with enough intent that the body clearly knows the sitting block has ended. If you are highly deconditioned, older, recovering from illness, or carrying joint pain, use smaller movement doses more often. If your pain rises with walking, adjust the surface, the footwear, the pace, or the duration instead of quitting the pattern altogether. And if your schedule is chaotic, use habit anchors instead of motivation. After every meal, after every bathroom break, after every hour of screen work, after every long call. The fastest way to fail is to rely on, "I will move later." Later is where sedentary people lose the day. Here's where most people stop, but here's the advanced layer. You do not judge sitting exposure by hours alone. You judge it by what happens downstream. Track post-meal sleepiness, afternoon cravings, low back stiffness, leg heaviness on stairs, morning resting heart rate, blood pressure trend, sleep onset, and how your brain feels in the final third of the workday. If you have pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, or a family history that already points in that direction, reducing sedentary time and breaking up sitting matters even more. Diabetes guidance explicitly encourages frequent activity breaks to reduce sedentary time, and the broader physical activity guidelines make the same point in plain language. Move more and sit less throughout the day. The advanced layer is that sitting tolerance is not just about discipline. It is about load management. When the load rises, your movement breaks need to get smarter, earlier, and more automatic. To make this stick, build a routine that removes decision fatigue. Put movement inside the structure of the day instead of adding it on top. Start the morning with a short walk if your workday tends to collapse into a chair. Put one walking block after lunch if you notice the biggest metabolic dip there. Use standing or pacing phone calls if the afternoon is where posture and attention decay. Keep one resistance habit in the week as insurance, because sitting less and training harder are not substitutes. They are teammates. Pair the whole system with sleep regularity, hydration, protein adequacy, and light exposure, because a sleep-deprived nervous system tolerates sitting worse and compensates with more caffeine, more snacking, and less movement. That is how these systems stack. Sitting too long is rarely the only problem. It is the anchor problem that makes the others easier to trigger. And test the habit under pressure, because that is where the truth shows up. On travel days, use terminals, rest stops, and hotel hallways. During deadlines, shorten the break, but do not delete it. During plateaus, do not ask whether the system still works. Ask whether the sitting load quietly climbed again while your movement frequency fell. WHO guidance is blunt. All adults should limit sedentary time and replace some of it with physical activity. and more activity generally gives more benefit. That is the rewatch detail in this whole script. The damage from sitting too long is usually not one dramatic event. It is the quiet accumulation of low muscle output, worse glucose handling, flatter circulation, stiffer mechanics, and poorer recovery. Once you see that, the fix stops being emotional. It becomes operational.